Welcome to Discover Your Purpose, class number 2. Pastor Rod here again, and we're going to continue on in this process of discovering your God-given purpose. So our topic for today is going to be primarily on life experiences, studying the things that have happened in your life and seeing how they could potentially help you discover your life purpose. But before we do that, I want to talk about your life just a little bit. A number of years ago, my wife and I attended a conference, and one of the speakers talked about this wheel of life and broke the wheel of life out into career, financial, spiritual, physical, intellectual, family, and social. And the way that he described it was that our life is like a wheel or a tire on a vehicle. And that when all of these areas are in balance, then everything rolls very smoothly. In other words, life goes on smoothly. But when one of these areas is off, then it's almost like having a flat tire. So you kind of roll along and then you get the kerthump and roll and kerthump. And what was happening at the time for me was that I was in a really great place in all of these areas except for the spiritual. I talked about this a little bit in the first class that I had this God-shaped void, and at the time I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew there was something wrong. And so every time it would come around to that place in my wheel of life, then I'd get the kerthump, and it just seemed like things were off. And it wasn't until I received Jesus as my Savior and began to commit my life to walking with him that everything began to smooth out. Now that doesn't mean that we don't have troubles, we don't have struggles. Certainly we do. We live in this fallen world and we're humans. So, there's going to be trouble. Even Jesus told us that there would be tribulation, but to take heart that he had overcome the world. So we have that hope in him. And so just think a little bit about what your life is. How are you doing in these areas? Are you enjoying your life, or are there these areas that kind of cause that kerthump in your life? And make some notes on this as to which part of this seems to be off, so that you can begin to research and start to evaluate those areas yourself. There are, according to this Forbes article, The Great Power of Connecting Passion with Purpose by Carl Moore, 4 stages of life. And so beyond just the wheel of life, I'd like you to evaluate what stage you're in. Are you in the struggle stage? This is where life is a challenge. There are significant risks in you meeting your needs. In other words, you're not really sure where the rent's going to come from, or the mortgage is going to come from, or where the food's going to come from. It's sort of a day-by-day thing, and it's not looking good. The second stage is survival, and this is a role where you're basically just at a getting by level. In other words, you're able to pay the bills, you're just getting by, but there's nothing more beyond that. You've got a low level of security, but if something really bad happened, that you could literally end up homeless. The third stage is success, and this is where you're really you've gotten beyond the security stage, and you are now beginning to really tap into your talents. You're beginning to add personal value into the world by achieving or even overachieving goals. You're starting to get some recognition. finances are starting to flow in and you're beginning to feel successful. And then the final stage is significance. And this is really where you're creating excellence. You are fully operating in your purpose. You're fully committed to your purpose. And it is a purpose that is way bigger than you could have ever imagined and is impacting others for the positive. And that's where we want to get to. We want to help you get from whatever stage you're in here to that significant stage. And one of the best ways to do that is to discover what your purpose is, get a vision plan in place, and begin to step out in motion so that God can begin to work in the middle of that. So what's stopping you? Well, there's 4 areas that we want to talk about here. The first one is negativity. And we see this in the story of the Israelites in the book of Exodus, where they've been in bondage for over 400 years. They don't know anything different than being slaves. And they cry out to God. God hears their cry. God sends Moses and Aaron. And we know the story, the 10 plagues, and then Pharaoh finally releases them. They get out into the wilderness, and they should be pretty excited about this because they're now free. God is literally leading them in a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. He's providing manna from heaven. He's providing quail. Their clothes don't wear out. They've got everything that they need, and yet they began to complain. They began to gripe, and they didn't like the manna. They wanted meat. They didn't have water, and so what happened was, because of all that negativity, it stopped them, and none of them, except for Joshua and Caleb, got to go into the promised land. Excuse me. And that's what negativity can do to you as well. You could discover your purpose, or maybe in the process of discovering your purpose, you begin to get critical and negative. And so you have to really watch what you're thinking. The Apostle Paul tells us to take every thought captive and submit it to Christ. And so we want to make sure that we are really evaluating what we're thinking and not allowing those negative thoughts to get in and take hold. And then we've got to make sure that we are not speaking negativity out of our mouth, because the Bible tells us that we have life and death in the power of the tongue. And so you can speak life to your purpose, or you can speak death to your purpose, depending upon how you speak. The second thing that could stop you is not being willing to take risks. This is going to be risky. If you've spent any time in the Bible looking at people who were walking with God, there were risks. They had to get out of their comfort zone. They couldn't live the cushy life anymore. And so if you truly want to be a true disciple, if you truly want to accomplish the purpose that God has placed you on this earth for, then you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to do some things that make you feel fearful and do it anyway, to go ahead and move forward in the fear and conquer it. And by doing that, then you will continue to grow in your purpose, grow in your faith, and grow in your achievement of that faith. The third area is the lies that you believe. You have to go in and take a look at, what are the lies that you've been told through the years? For instance, when I was a kid, I was told that I was a sickly kid because I was sick quite a bit. And so I bought into that lie. And it wasn't until my college years and shortly after the college years that I began to think that maybe that's not true. Maybe I could be healthy. And I began to study nutrition and food and vitamins and minerals and herbs, and began to put together routines. And whereas in my early life I had suffered with very severe asthma, that asthma went away. I had very severe allergies, chronic bronchitis, that went away. And so, we don't have to buy into these lies, but when we do buy into the lies, they control our lives. I also was told I was a shy kid. And so I bought into that I was a shy kid, and it inhibited me in my life in lots of different areas. But when I got into the point where I began to operate my own businesses, I realized that if I was going to be successful, I couldn't be that shy kid. I needed to be more outgoing. I needed to go out and build relationships. I needed to be able to speak in public. I would just as soon have died than speak in public. And when I began to realize that if I really wanted to be successful in achieving my purpose, that I needed to be comfortable speaking in public, I began to force myself to do that in fear. And so I would set up speaking engagements, and I've got to tell you, it was miserable. I remember the first time I spoke, I was wearing a suit, so I had a t-shirt on, I had a dress shirt on, and I had a suit on, and I sweat all the way through all of them. And sweat was dripping down my face, and my mouth got so dry that my tongue stuck to the top of my mouth, and I couldn't even speak. It was terrible, but I kept going. I knew that I wasn't going to be conquered by this. And so the second time was better, the third time was better, the fourth time was better. And now all these years later, I've spoken in front of crowds as many as 5,000 people, and love speaking publicly now. I'm a pastor, a teaching pastor. And so I teach every few weeks as a part of our teaching team at our church. And I love doing that. I love teaching on video now. Doing this, what I'm doing right now, would not have been possible, just 20 years ago. And now I love doing it. So what are the lies that you've believed? What are the things that people have told you? What are the things that you've thought about yourself that you've bought into? And number 4, I call it stopping and starting. And this was another area that I really struggled with. Was I was a really good starter, but I wasn't a great finisher. And so I get all excited about something and I get rolling with it. And then I'd hit my first speed bump, and that was it. I'd move on to something else because it wasn't comfortable. And I got to the place where I had to learn to push through those barriers, to find a way around them, over them, under them, or to just knock them down. And that's what you're going to have to do as well. If you suffer with that, if you're a good starter and not a good finisher, the key to, first of all, discovering your purpose is that you've got to keep going and keep pushing, even when it gets uncomfortable, even when you don't think you're ever going to know what your purpose is or fully understand what it is. You've got to push through, because that's the way you're going to get there. And when the obstacles come in, when the naysayers come in, when the dream stealers come in, when you start to share what your purpose is, and people are talking about you like, no, there is no way you could ever accomplish that. You're not smart enough. You're too young. You're too old. You don't have the right education. You don't have enough money. You'll never be able to do that. Then you can push through and not buy into that lie that they've just tried to tell you. And you can not only start, but you can finish. And we've got to become really great finishers if we truly want to accomplish what God has put us here on earth to do. So the more you begin to understand yourself, the more you begin to understand your life experiences, your gifts, your talents, your strengths, then the closer you're going to get to discovering your purpose. And that's what we're going to do in these next few days. We're going to examine your life experiences today. We're going to get into spiritual gifts, talents, and strengths in the other days. And you're going to continue to get these puzzle pieces that you can put into your life puzzle to uncover the purpose that God has put you here on earth for. Your life experiences. We're going to start through a process here where I want to help you look at your life experiences and figure out which life experiences will contribute to your purpose. So your life experiences will help you break through the life stoppers we just talked about, and they'll help you discover your God-given purpose. So it's really important to take the time to do this. Make sure that you've got a pad handy, something you can write on, a journal, whatever you're using to take notes. And if you don't have that, stop the video and start and get that and get ready, because I'm going to be asking you some questions. And after each question, I'm going to expect you to stop the video and take some time and really think about that and write your answers down. And once you've gotten to the place where you don't have anything more to write, then you can start the video back up and go on to the next question. So let's get started. Your first question is, what are your significant life experiences? What are the experiences that have had the greatest impact on you, whether that was a positive impact or a negative impact? Think about those life experiences and what were they? Go in, pause the video, write them down, and relive the moment. Even if it was a difficult time, even if it was a painful time, relive the moment so that you can connect to it spiritually and you can connect to it emotionally, because we need to begin to dig in and understand why were those life experiences significant and what impact have they had on your life, possibly in a positive way or in a negative way. I'm going to talk more about this later on, but when I was in high school, a sophomore in high school, I took a writing class, and I had one of the best teachers that I had all the way through my schooling, from kindergarten all the way through my 12th year of high school, my 4 years of college. I had just an amazing teacher. His name was Mr. Mason. And Mr. Mason, after he had studied some of my writing, came to me and he said, if you were to really hone your craft, study your craft, work on your craft, you could be a great writer and you could publish books someday. And I had never really thought about that. I knew I liked writing. I'd always liked writing. Whenever we had essay projects in school, I loved those. I loved writing stories. I was creative, but I'd never thought about being an author. And that was a significant life experience for me. And I hung on to that. And I published my first book in 1995. As I mentioned in the first class, I've now published 9 books at the time that we're recording this. And the 10th book is in the editing process right now and will come out this year. And maybe by the time you're watching this series some years down the road, maybe there's 15 books, who knows? Only God knows that. But that was a significant life experience for me. And it was one that has molded my life as I became an author. And I've always been so thankful to Mr. Mason. I took some time at one point in time to try to track him down, never could find him. I did acknowledge him in my first book, and I was hoping that maybe somewhere, somehow he got that word so he could know how important he was to my life. So what are your significant life experiences? Pause the video right now and go in and write in on your notes or in your journal the significant life experiences that you've had. All right. Well, welcome back. our next life question is, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were a kid? Just like I shared in the first class, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. And I did everything within my power and ability and talent to accomplish that purpose. It didn't work out because it wasn't ultimately my life purpose. I'm now living my life purpose, serving God, equipping the body of Christ, teaching, writing. And now I'm fully operating in my purpose, and I absolutely love it. And so think about what you wanted to be when you grew up, because very often, although mine didn't work out, what it did though was it allowed me to create some disciplines and the ability to finish things and the ability to practice and become better, which I've used all the way through my life. So just because the thing that you wanted to be when you're a kid, you didn't become that, doesn't mean you can't learn something from what you wanted to be when you grew up. There was probably a reason that you wanted to be that. For instance, our youngest daughter, she always wanted to be a teacher. She talked about being a teacher. And so now she's a teacher, and she's been a teacher for over 10 years. And you can just see her love for children, her love for helping children learn. And that's her life purpose. Now she's a parent. She has 2 boys, and I watch her with the boys in the same way that she is with her students. And so that was a situation where that was what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she became that. Our youngest son wanted to be a firefighter. He's a firefighter. What did you want to be when you grew up? What are you doing now? And what are the similarities? What are the things that you had to do to try to become what you wanted to be when you grew up? Just like I had to do certain things to be a professional baseball player. And those things didn't then result in me being a professional baseball player, but they are things that I've been able to use in my business life and now in my spiritual life. So again, pause the video, take some time, think about what you wanted to be when you grew up. And there may have been several things. You may have thought at different points in times you wanted to be different professions, different occupations. What did they have in common? I find that there are certain people who want to help people, and they typically become nurses and doctors and firemen and policemen and consultants and coaches and things like that. So it may be that what you wanted to be when you grew up had a certain aspect of it that can be applied now as you begin to study and discover your purpose. So again, pause the video, take some notes. What did you want to be when you grew up? Give some thought to it. Don't rush through it. Take some time. And when you're done, come back to the video. All right, welcome back. The next question is, what have you always dreamed about doing? What have you always dreamed about doing? Because if you've dreamed about it, there's a good chance that that dream came from God. Even though you may not have known God and you may not have recognized it, that dream came from God. I believe that my dream of becoming a published author came from God. I didn't know God then. When Mr. Mason spoke into my life, I think God was using him. And I don't know whether he was a Christian or not. It didn't really matter. God can use anyone. But I believe that God was speaking through him into me so that I began to understand what my purpose was, or at least part of my purpose. So what have you always dreamed about doing? Have you dreamed of writing a book? Have you dreamed of being a movie maker? Have you dreamed of a certain way of living life, maybe dreamed of living in a different country or traveling the world. Maybe you've dreamed of being a craftsperson of some kind and making things. Maybe you've dreamed of going into space as an astronaut. What have you dreamed? And again, just because you haven't achieved that dream doesn't mean it's not real. And it may be that there's an aspect of that dream that will help you uncover your purpose. So pause the video, take some time, write down what you've always dreamed of doing. Don't rush through this. Allow your emotions to get involved. See where you really connect emotionally. Listen to the Lord and see if he's got something in there, because he has dreams for us. And believe me, these dreams are bigger than we could ever imagine. So pause the video now, take some time, take some notes, and then come back to the video. Next, what have you always been good at? I've mentioned a couple of times, I was always good at writing. I just was naturally good at that. I could put together sentences, I could write creatively. And so that was just a talent that it appears like I was born with or developed very quickly at an early age. I was also really good at leadership. And even though I had been told I was a shy kid, I was always the leader in our neighborhood. I was the one that would get all the kids together and have baseball games and football games and basketball games and hide and seek and capture the flag. And we would build forts and have medieval times and things like that where we didn't have video games back then. We had 3 television channels, so there wasn't much TV available. We didn't have the internet, none of those things. So we had to use our imagination and make stuff up and build stuff and create stuff. And so I was always really good at that. I was always really creative. I was also very entrepreneurial from a young age. I was the kid that, set up the, we used to sell Kool-Aid. Everybody talks about selling lemonade now, but we would sell Kool-Aid. So we would make up pictures of Kool-Aid and set up the table out in front of the house and sell Kool-Aid. But I got frustrated because not many people would stop and I didn't really make much. And so at a very young age, I loaded my Kool-Aid in my red wagon and went door to door and knocked on the door and asked if they'd like to buy a cup of Kool-Aid. And I sold a lot of Kool-Aid that way. Later on, I made certain types of things and sold them to people I knew. At one point in time, I painted rocks, gold and silver, and went door to door and sold those. So, I was very entrepreneurial at a young age, and that entrepreneurial side of me always seemed to push past the shyness. And so, when I got into a place where I literally had my own businesses and was an entrepreneur, then that was one of the reasons that I was able to push through the shyness, become a public speaker, become someone who, although I'm still an introvert, I can push through that and interact with people and be part of the group. So what have you always been good at? What talents do you have? Like, I am not talented with my hands in terms of fixing anything or building anything. If you want to build something, you don't want me on your team. You want to find those people that are really good at that. I was never good at music. And, I could sing a little bit, but I could never understand how to play instruments. I tried several times to learn guitar and piano and just never could do it. So those were things that I wasn't good at. And I discovered the things that I wasn't good at pretty quick. And then I discovered the things that I was good at. And I just began to excel in the things that I was good at and not try to do the things that I wasn't good at. So what have you always been good at? Stop the video right now, pause it, and take some notes. What have you always been good at? And when you run out of thoughts in that area, then come back to the video. Welcome back. What have you always enjoyed doing? That's our next life experience question. What have you always enjoyed doing? I've always enjoyed sports. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoy watching it. I've always enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed putting projects together and finding the best in people and bringing them in so that everything worked together and became a synergistic type of project. So, those are things I've always enjoyed doing. I've always enjoyed reading and read a lot. So what have you always enjoyed doing? Because the things you enjoy doing are definitely going to point you in some way to your purpose. I always enjoyed reading and writing. Now part of my purpose is writing books, writing training programs, writing copy for websites and landing pages. And so what have you always enjoyed doing? Stop the video right now and take some notes about what you've always enjoyed doing. Take time. Don't rush through any of these exercises. This is really important that you take the time to really understand these life experiences and even connect with them emotionally so that you can begin to see how they play into your purpose. So pause the video right now, take some notes, come back when you're done. Next question, what are you passionate about? What gets you fired up? I mean, I was passionate about sports and passionate about being the best that I could be. And I think that even though I didn't go on and that wasn't my purpose, I've always maintained that in everything I've done. I've always strived to be the best I could be. And just like I did in sports, where I would study and I would practice and I would learn, I've done the same thing to become a good speaker, to become a good writer, to be able to create websites and technology. I'm very unusual for my age. I have a lot of my friends that are my age that are just totally lost in technology. And I certainly don't claim to be some, technological guru or anything, but I understand technology and I work with technology and I'm comfortable with technology way beyond my age. So what are you passionate about? I'm passionate about equipping the body of Christ to go out and preach the gospel, to go out and make disciples, to go out and spread the kingdom. What are you passionate about? Take some time. Pause the video right now. Pray, ask God to reveal your passions. Some of them are real easy. I mean, you'll know what you're passionate about and what you're not, but some of them may be a little buried. And maybe you were passionate about it at one point in time and something happened, somebody threw some water on you and quenched that passion. Think about that. Take some time, pray, think, write, what are you passionate about? And then come back to the video. Next, what has you burdened or made you angry? I think we all have these things. We all have things that burden us. People in our life, certain situations in our life, certain things that have happened in the world, injustices in the world that make you angry. And the question is, do they make you angry enough to do something about it? In other words, is it something that you have this sense that God is putting this burden in you or allowing you to have this burden so that you will actually go do something to be the solution or part of the solution for that? So take some time, pause the video, write down the things that burden you or the things that make you angry. and then come back. Welcome back. So what have you learned about yourself from all of these experiences? How do you feel that these experiences apply to your purpose? What can you see in them that you could then apply to maybe some direction you're beginning to get from the Lord about what you're to accomplish here on earth? And you want to continue to press into this, even beyond these videos, press into it, pray into it, meditate in it, and hear from the Lord what he wants you to accomplish in this life, what your purpose is, and the ways that you're going to accomplish that purpose. So your life experiences are going to tell you a lot about you and how you operate and how you function, and what you have done will give you a better idea of what you're going to do. But we want to move on to the next phase of this, the next puzzle piece, which is your personality, the way God made you. And we need to dig deep into that to help you uncover your God-given purpose. So what I want you to do after this video is done, write this website and go to this website and complete the assessment. It's 16, the number 16, personalities.com. You see it at the bottom of the screen there. And what it's going to do is you go in there, it's free, there's no cost. You will need to put your email address in there and they will email you a report. It's a very good report. I've found it very accurate. I've had a lot of people go through it. They've found it to be very accurate. And so what it's going to do is it's going to be another one of those puzzle pieces going into your purpose puzzle. It'll help you to be able to see how God made you. So make sure you go do this before you start video number 3, class number 3, because we're going to be talking about this in that video. And you want to make sure that you know what personality you are so that you can really connect with that, because we're going to talk about each of the personalities. And you'll begin to then, as you understand the personalities, you will not only understand your personality, but you'll understand people around you. And I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow, the impact that personality assessment had in my life, how it impacted my marriage, how it impacted my parenting, and how it impacted my life in fulfilling my purpose. So again, 16personalities.com. Make sure you've written that down. Pause the video if you need to. If you don't have something to write on for some reason, you should, because you've been taking notes for things. So, but get this down, go to it right away, complete the assessment, get your report back, study your report before you start video number 3. So your assignment, what life stage are you at? What's stopping you from moving forward? These are questions you want to answer as a part of your assignment. From what you've learned in these first 2 classes, make a list of the experiences that you feel connect in with your purpose. You may have lots of life experiences, but only a few of them that will connect in with your purpose. And then make sure you complete that personality assessment so that you're ready for the next class. So in summary, this process is just like going on a trip. You've got to know where you're starting from in order to engage the GPS. And then you want to at least know the general area you're going to. and then you can activate the GPS, which in our case, concerning your purpose, I call the God positioning system. So once you engage the GPS, and you begin to move forward from where you are, then again, as we talked about in class number 1, that's when God begins to work. That's when he puts his power in there. That's when he gives you your divine interventions and connections and provides people and money and all the things that you need that seem impossible at the beginning, but all of a sudden everything begins to click into place. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time. It doesn't happen immediately, but you got to get moving in order for that to happen. So our life experiences that we talked about and evaluated today, they tell us a lot about ourselves, and they contribute to us discovering our God-given purpose and then beginning to move forward in it. So tomorrow we'll reveal another piece of the puzzle, and we'll continue to build your puzzle. So thanks for watching. Again, feel free to check into our website, truedisciple.info. If you've got questions or things that come up, feel free to email me at rod@truedisciple.info. So glad you were here. Go do all that good work, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we will uncover another one of the purpose puzzle pieces.